He appointed him. That is the detail that changes everything. That is the fact that Keir Starmer cannot escape, cannot reframe, cannot talk his way around, no matter how many times he stands at that dispatch box and lists numbers. Lord Robertson, the man who just said Britain is underprepared, underinsured, and under attack, is not a Conservative critic. He is not a reform agitator. He is not a journalist with an agenda. He is the man Keir Starmer personally chose to lead his own strategic defence review. Handpicked, trusted, given the most important defence brief in the country by this Prime Minister. And he has just publicly stated that this Prime Minister has a corrosive complacency when it comes to defence. His words, not Kemi's, not the Conservatives, not ours. The man Starmer appointed, using those exact words about the man who appointed him. And today, at Prime Minister's Questions, Kemi Badenoch stood up and made sure every single person in that chamber understood exactly what that means. She did not need to invent an attack. She did not need to exaggerate or spin or reach for something dramatic. She simply repeated what Lord Robertson said and asked Starmer one question. Why? He had no answer. This is that full story. Stay with me. Let's start with what Lord Robertson actually said. Because mainstream media will give you a sentence, we are going to give you the full weight of it. Lord Robertson said the Prime Minister has a corrosive complacency when it comes to defence. He said Britain is underprepared. He said Britain is underinsured. He said Britain is under attack. And he said our national security is in peril. 4 statements. From a former Labour Defence Secretary. From a former NATO Secretary-General. From the man Starmer trusted enough to hand the entire Strategic Defence Review. Every single one of those statements is a direct verdict on the Prime Minister who appointed him. Corrosive complacency. That is not a gentle criticism. That is not a political opponent scoring points. That is a diagnosis, the same word Kemi used about Starmer's response to the Mandelson crisis. The same pattern. A man who was warned, who had the information, who chose not to act, and who is now watching the consequences arrive, one by one. Lord Robertson did not make those comments lightly. He did not pick up the phone to a journalist on a slow news day. He stuck his head above the parapet, Kemi's exact words at the dispatch box today, because he looked at the state of British defence and concluded that silence was no longer an option. That is the man Starmer appointed. That is the verdict that man has delivered. You know what that means, right? Now let's talk about what Kemi did with it. Because this is where it gets significant. She did not open with the biggest attack straight away. She built it, methodically, question by question. And each question tightened the trap by one more notch. First question. Why did Lord Robertson say the Prime Minister has a corrosive complacency on defence? Starmer's response was what it always is when he has no real answer. Process, numbers, history. He talked about increasing defence spending from 2.3 to 2.6%. He talked about the NATO summit commitment to 3.5%. He listed budget decisions. He said the Strategic Defence Review is a 10-year blueprint. He did not answer the question. He did not explain why the man who wrote that 10-year blueprint then publicly said the Prime Minister leading it has a corrosive complacency. He talked around it, above it, beside it. He mentioned everything except the specific words of the specific man he appointed. Kemi let him finish, and then she came back. She quoted Lord Robertson again, directly. We are underprepared. We are underinsured. We are under attack. And she asked a second question. Our armed forces are at the end of their tether, waiting for this government to fund the Strategic Defence Review. There are still 2 weeks of the parliamentary session left. Why won't the Prime Minister publish the Defence Investment Plan before then? Again, no answer. Starmer talked about the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. He talked about £270 billion over this Parliament. He talked about what the Conservatives left behind when they were in government. He went backwards, sideways, anywhere except forward to the question being asked. The Defence Investment Plan. The document. The thing that actually tells the military, the defence industry, and the country what is going to happen and when. Where is it? He promised it last autumn. Kemi asked him about it 6 weeks ago at PMQs. He had no idea when it would be published. Today, it is the middle of April, and it still does not exist. Subscribe to this channel right now. What you are watching is a Prime Minister who cannot answer the most basic question about the security of this country. Mainstream media will give you the exchange. They will not give you the pattern. They will not show you that this is the third time in 6 weeks Kemi has asked the same question and received no answer. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because this story runs every single week. But here is where Starmer made his biggest mistake today. And it is the moment that reveals everything about how this Prime Minister operates under pressure. When he ran out of numbers and history to hide behind, he turned to Iran. He brought up Kemi's position on the Iran conflict. He said she wanted to jump into the war with both feet, without thinking through the consequences. He said she called for jumping into the war, and then attempted the mother of all U-turns when she realised her error. He said she told him she meant verbal support. Now, set aside for a moment whether his characterisation of her position is accurate. We will come back to that. What matters is why he said it. He said it because he had nothing else. He had been asked a direct question about a specific document, the Defence Investment Plan, that he promised, failed to deliver, and cannot explain. He had been asked why his own appointed defence chief had publicly said Britain is in peril under his leadership. He had no answer to either of those things. So he changed the subject. That is what deflection looks like in politics. Not the polished kind, the desperate kind. The kind that happens when a Prime Minister has been cornered by a question he cannot answer and reaches for anything at all, that moves the conversation somewhere else. Kemi saw it immediately. Her response was 5 words that cut through everything Starmer had just said. Let's stop talking about what I didn't say. Let's start talking about what he isn't doing. That is the skill. Not the theatrical moment, not the loudest line. The precise, calm redirection that pulls the room back to the question that still has no answer. She did not get drawn into defending her position on Iran. She did not take the bait. She acknowledged it, set it aside, and returned directly to the thing Starmer cannot escape. He isn't doing it. That is the verdict. Not from Kemi, from Lord Robertson, from the man he appointed. And then she asked the most specific question of the entire session. And it is the one that tells you exactly how badly this government has failed on defence. In January 2024, the Conservative government approved an upgrade of destroyers, including HMS Dragon, so they can better intercept ballistic missiles. A direct, specific, costed upgrade to a specific warship to address a specific threat. In July 2024, 1 month after taking office, Starmer paused that plan. Kemi asked him today to immediately approve and fund that critical upgrade. He did not answer. He mentioned that HMS Dragon was commissioned by a Labour government. He said she wanted to jump into the war. He talked about visiting the Gulf. He said she insulted the armed forces. He mentioned pilots scrambling within 2 hours. He said serious times call for serious people, and she is not one of them. He did not say yes. He did not say no. He did not give a timeline. He did not explain why the upgrade was paused. He did not say when or whether it will be reinstated. HMS Dragon. A warship designed to intercept ballistic missiles in a region where ballistic missiles are currently being fired. And the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has paused its upgrade, was asked directly today to reverse that decision, and responded by talking about anything except the ship. You know what that means, right? Lord Robertson was not speaking abstractly when he said Britain is underprepared. He was not making a general political observation. He was describing a government that pauses warship upgrades, fails to publish defence investment plans it has promised twice, and then stands at the dispatch box and answers questions about ballistic missile defence by talking about Iran positioning. Underprepared. His word. The man Starmer appointed. About the man who appointed him. Now let's be clear about the bigger picture here, because this is where it gets genuinely important for everyone watching. Starmer has said the Strategic Defence Review is a 10-year blueprint for national security. He has said the Defence Investment Plan will put that into effect. He has said it will be published as soon as possible. He has said they need to get it right. That is what he has said. What he has done is different. He paused an approved warship upgrade in his first month in office. He promised a defence investment plan last autumn and did not publish it. 6 weeks ago, Kemi asked him when it would be published, and he had no idea. Today, she asked again. Still no date, still no plan, still no answer. And in the gap between what he has said and what he has done, Lord Robertson, his own man, his own appointment, the architect of his own defence review, has gone public and said Britain is underprepared, underinsured, and under attack. That gap is not a communication problem. It is not a timing issue. It is not the complexity of an 18-year review of defence budgets. It is a Prime Minister who talks about defence spending in the abstract while pausing the specific decisions that actually make Britain safer. Kemi Badenoch understands the difference, and today she demonstrated it, question by question, until there was nowhere left for Starmer to hide. Here is what happens next. Because this does not end today. The Defence Investment Plan still does not exist. Every week it remains unpublished. Is another week the military, the defence industry, and our allies are waiting for this government to make a decision. Every week Lord Robertson's words hang in the air over every statement Starmer makes about record defence spending. Kemi will be back at that dispatch box next week. She will ask again. She will ask about HMS Dragon. She will ask about the Defence Investment Plan. She will ask why the man Starmer appointed to write the blueprint for British security has said that security is in peril, and Starmer will have to answer. Or deflect again. And each deflection makes the next question harder to escape. This is a Prime Minister who promised stability and competence, who told the country that serious times call for serious leadership, who stood outside Downing Street and said the long years of chaos were over. His own defence chief says Britain is underprepared. His own warship upgrade is paused. His own defence investment plan does not exist. And the woman on the opposition benches keeps asking the question that he keeps refusing to answer. Lord Robertson stuck his head above the parapet because he believed the public needed to know. Kemi Badenoch carried that message into the chamber today and made sure Starmer could not ignore it. He ignored it anyway. Share this video with everyone you know who is watching this government talk about defence while failing to deliver it. Share it with everyone who deserves to know that the Prime Minister's own appointed defence chief has said Britain is in peril. Share it with everyone who understands that talking about the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War is not the same as publishing the plan that actually delivers it. Mainstream media will move on. They will give you the headline number, the 270 billion, the record investment. They will not show you the paused warship upgrade. They will not show you the missing document. They will not show you the man Starmer appointed saying the things he said. We will not move on. Subscribe to this channel now, because the only way to hold this government accountable is to make sure everyone sees exactly what it has said, exactly what it has done, and exactly how far apart those two things are. Kemi Badenoch sees that gap. She is not going to stop pointing at it.